Hi, and welcome to this session of Georgetown Startup Interns. Today's session is all about sales. And if cash is king, then sales are queen. This presentation was created by a dear friend of mine, Pat Henriquez, and I am delighted to share some of her teachings with you today. So the art and science of sales really comes down to defining sales, the anatomy of your side, your sales pitch, and I want you to understand that to sell is human, all right? Everybody is selling every day. We're all persuasive people trying to encourage others to take action in a way that will both benefit them and benefit ourselves in terms of time, effort, or money. And sales is not a sleazy thing. You're not going to be a used car salesman because you're trying to sell a product or service. You're trying to genuinely and authentically create a human connection and add value. The ABCs of selling. Always be closing. It's a great quote from Glengarry Ross, which is a 1994 movie with a absolutely stellar monologue from Alec Baldwin. We're going to include that in the course curriculum as well. But there's three other ABCs we want to go over as well. The first is attunement, in which you're attuning and listening to your customers to see and hear their perspective. Buoyancy, to be resilient and go under and bounce back up, all right? And be able to hear no 7 times, get knocked down, and pop back up the 8th time, excited to talk to the next prospect, because that's the name of the game, all right? You're going to hear no a lot of times. What you need to do is learn from those setbacks or rejections and not get down on yourself. And the C for clarity is to clearly communicate your message and provide your customers with new insights and opportunities. So there's some sales myths here, and I want to dispel them and give you what the reality is. So sales does not require convincing someone to do something they don't want to do. Sales gives people an opportunity to buy what they need. They may have not known that they needed it before you presented it, before you asked some questions to shine a spotlight on what their needs are. If you do good work, it's not going to sell itself. Sales does require effort and attention, and it's a craft. Like any other skill, you need to practice and develop it. Your price is never too high. Anytime somebody thinks your price is too high, it means you have not done a good enough job demonstrating and communicating the value of the product or service you're going to offer. If you're ever in a sales presentation meeting and the first thing they say is, all right, how much does this cost? You want to bridge. You never answer that question right away because you haven't had enough time to create value in their mind. Okay, so you want to spend more time shining a spotlight on the pain point. You want to learn questions you can ask so the prospect genuinely in that moment feels the pain of the problem you're solving. And because they know how strong that pain is, they're going to be willing to spend more and more money to solve it because it's a real problem that your product or service can alleviate the pain for them. All right, so there are some sales terminology. We're going to go over everything from sales to advertising, marketing, and business development. So sales creates revenue. That's money in the bank. Shorty, what you drank. Let's get some cash flowing into our company bank account with sales. Advertising creates awareness. And so there is, we'll talk a lot today about funnels. There's a marketing funnel called the ADA funnel, where it's awareness, interest, desire, and then ultimately action. So advertising is the top of that marketing funnel, creating awareness. Marketing gets down to the demand. So there's the desire for somebody to want to solve the problem and potentially purchase your product or service. And business development is focused on creating opportunity. And we'll dive more into opportunity later in the presentation. So what exactly is it that you're selling? First and foremost, you're selling yourself. Are you a credible source for goods and service? As I'm running through these Georgetown Startup Interns training programs, I'm selling myself to you that I'm a qualified expert here to teach you the skills you need to be successful in your internship and hopefully throughout your professional career. You're also selling your company. All right, what is the reputation of your company's brand? Can your team deliver? Does the prospect have confidence in your ability to do the things you say you're going to do? And you're also selling the goods or services. Are your products any good? Is there actual value that they can create? All right, so as you go about selling, you want to be aware that you're selling to the customers. All right, why should they buy your product? Who are they? You're also selling to employees in terms of why should they work here? Why should they work with you? You're selling suppliers. Is there a good market for them? Can you bring them distributors all the way to the end client? And in some cases, you're also selling investors. Can you make them money? Is this a scalable and sustainable business model that can be profitable for them? So what exactly makes your products or services great? What are you really selling? And it ultimately comes down to your unique selling proposition, which can be defined as an elevator pitch. And we'll go through later in the program on presentations and how do you craft your message in a way that highlights that your product is better, faster, cheaper, stronger, sexier, whatever it is than the market alternative. And there's a really great 2-sentence elevator pitch that you can practice. And it starts with shining a spotlight on the problem. And real quick, let me just ask you, while you're watching this video, if you could just check real quick and make a note of what time it is. So what time of day is it right now? What I just did with that question, asking you what time it is I directed your attention either to your watch or your phone or the bottom right corner in your computer to see what time it is. And with your elevator pitch, you want to ask a question that directs the audience's attention to the problem or the pain point you're solving. So the first half of the elevator pitch is, do you know how? And then you spell out the problem you're solving. Okay, so that's the first step. Do you know how? And then talk about the problem that your product or service solves. Well, what we do is, and then you include your unique selling proposition. So do you know how? Talk about the problem. Well, what we do is talk about your unique selling proposition. Really easy to remember. It's 2 sentences, and it's a great way to generate initial interest from potential clients. So your unique selling proposition is kind of in this Venn diagram area of what your brand does well, what the consumer wants, and what your competitors don't do well. So that winning zone is really the differential point. And the bigger you can make that about what you're really good at and what the consumer wants, and there's a gap in the market because the other competitors don't do it, that's where you can have a lot of success with your unique selling proposition. So here's another Mad Libs type form that you can fill in, and I encourage you to actually fill in these blanks with the unique selling proposition for your company for the specific customer type who has this pain point that needs to be solved. We offer your solution that includes these features, which means these benefits. So take a minute now, pause the video, and actually get out a piece of paper and a pen, open a Google Doc, and fill in this Mad Libs on your unique selling proposition. And I encourage you, once you do that, to actually share it with your boss or your supervisor at your company and have them review it and get their thoughts, because they may be able to help you wordsmith it or improve some of the language or definition that you have there. I also want to call out this at the very end, the features, which means benefits. So these 2 words, which means, are a magical connector in the English language. They can connect any feature, which means benefit. And ultimately, people don't buy the features, they buy the benefits. So some salespeople will get in the habit of just listing off all of the features they have. It comes in all these different colors. We've got these different sizes. If somebody needs to hang up a picture frame and they need to they need to hammer a nail into the wall, they're not buying the hammer because it could do the hammering. They're buying the hole in the wall. And that's the benefit. That's the ultimate solution. So you need to think about what is it that they want to get done, because ultimately the hammer helps them hang up a picture frame. So think through what are the benefits, and you can say, hey, we have this feature, which means this benefit. So let's talk about the anatomy of your sale. It's all about the funnel, baby. Sales is a numbers game, and you're going to create a variety of funnels where there's a lot of things at the top, these prospects that turn into leads, that turn into opportunities that are ultimately paying customers. And here are 7 steps for a sales funnel. The first is your initial contact, where you have your first potentially cold email or cold call. Perhaps you meet the prospect at a networking event, in this case, probably online due to COVID. Going out and meeting people in person, though, once it's safe to do so, is a great way to get those initial contacts. And as soon as you get into that initial conversation, you begin qualifying the prospect, right? And you're going to learn and come up with different questions you can ask potential customers or prospects to qualify them, to see how likely is it that they are your ideal customer persona. Are they the types of person who normally buys your products? If you're selling baby monitors, for example, and you're talking to other college students, it's unlikely, and you can qualify pretty quickly, that if they don't have any kids, then they're not in your ideal customer persona. So understanding who is it that buys and uses your products or service, you want to learn how to ask questions that qualify them to determine if they're serious and capable of making a purchase. You also want to understand if they're the budget owner or the decision maker. A lot of B2B sales, business to business, will have quote unquote gatekeepers and people you may have to deal with, but they can't say yes. So my dad taught me a long time ago, never accept a no from someone who can't say yes. After you do some qualifying, you want to begin to develop the solution by collecting facts about the client to hone in on the specific value proposition that's going to be most impactful for that potential client. Then you'll get to the presentation stage. This is usually the next meeting after an initial prospecting or qualifying call, where you might have a presentation like this that you're sharing via Zoom. You might have a printout packet that you want to go over with them. There may be a product sample or a product demo if it's a SaaS company, which is software as a service. So you might share your screen and kind of click them through and show them how it works. After the presentation, there'll usually be a time period where the prospect will go back without you and evaluate the solution. Now, in small B2C sales, they may do the evaluation without any other influence from other people. They can do it on their own. For larger business-to-business sales, or even direct-to-consumer, somebody has to consult their spouse or their roommate. Hey, do we want to buy this? The evaluation phase. Then ultimately, there's some negotiation here at the end where you'll talk about price, the delivery date, things like that. Those are some opportunities you can create to close. And I do want to highlight that while negotiation is listed here as the sixth stage here in generating sales, you should be planting some seeds and anchoring throughout your presentation on what the price may be like. You don't want to surprise them at the end and they thought this was a $20 thing they're buying and you're telling them it's $2,000. So planting some seeds early on to make sure that it's within the realm of possibilities of their available budget. Now I want to talk about 7 steps of the sales process, which is kind of similar to the funnel we just talked about, but there's the pre-presentation stage where step 1 is your introduction. I have done thousands of attempts to meet people, whether in selling a product or service or selling myself as a potential first date. And the number one way to introduce yourself is to simply say, hi, I'm Mike. Hi, and introduce your name. If you want, you can add a second sentence that says, hi, I'm Mike, and I'm a professor at Georgetown University. You can state your title and the company you work for. I've tried a lot of other gimmicky things to try to introduce and get that initial momentum. Hands down, be authentic, give them your real name, and just go from there. Next up, you want to start to qualify them. You want to ask some questions to see where their eyebrows go up and it piques their interest and you have identified a real problem they have. And then you have to get them to the point where they know they have a problem, they want the problem solved, and they want to hear the solution. And this many times will not happen in the first interaction, which is why it's called the pre-presentation. And you may need to schedule a later meeting with them to tell them more about, one, the problem they have, and then ultimately get them to hear the solution that you can present, where you direct their attention to the features, which means the benefits, and now they're aware of your product and how it can solve their problem. Step 7, this is the magical step of closing. And what's fascinating is so many salespeople are awkward and uncomfortable. And when I say salespeople, I mean you. You are a salesperson. Part of your job at this internship is going to be selling. You might be selling externally. You might be selling your boss. You might be selling other interns. You might be selling people on what to get for lunch. Okay, you sell your roommates, your parents. You're always selling and trying to persuade people. 100% of the revenue is generated here in step 7 when they buy the product. But most salespeople only spend 5 to 20% of their time here. They're a little awkward and uncomfortable. and not sure what to do, and they don't want to be pushy, and I don't want you to be pushy. I want you to be confident in creating these closing opportunities to be successful. So it's also important that you define your primary sales model, as there are different things that you can sell in different ways. Are you selling to businesses, to consumers? Is it relationship sales? Are you consulting? Are you selling to the mass market, everybody and their mother? Are you selling through distributors, e-commerce? Is it a physical product you're selling, or is it a service? Are you selling time or workshops? And understanding that indirect channels require more marketing material and additional information than direct channels. So an indirect channel would be selling through a distributor who has a sales rep who goes to the end client, who sells it to the store, and then the store sells it to an individual who comes in. So we want to think about what your capacity is in order to set realistic sales goals. And this is the ability within your company's constraints to think about the number of hours it takes to generate sufficient interest at the top of the funnel in order to get a specific click-through rate or scheduling meeting rate, and to assess the capacity and determine the level of effort required to meet your sales goals. So what does it take to make a sale, and what's your capacity to meet your sales goals? Sales goals are usually defined in terms of revenue streams, and you want to compute an annual sales goal that you can then break down on a quarterly, basically 3-month period, versus a monthly basis, versus a weekly basis, versus a daily basis. So you can understand how much time you need to spend on a daily or weekly basis in order to achieve the sales goals. An important variable here at looking at your sales goals is, what is your average size of a sale? All right, are you selling something that's $10? So your average sale is $10, which means you're going to have to sell hundreds or hundreds of thousands of them to meet your sales goals? Or is your sales goal $5,000, or your average sales size $5,000? All right, this is some bigger money, but maybe it's even a $50,000 sale. And with that in mind, it's probably going to take a lot more prep work and a lot more pre-presentation and presentation stage activities with potential customers to get them to the point where they're ready to make that buying decision. So you also want to track, how long is your sales cycle? Does it take on average 3 months to make a sale? Can you do it in 30 minutes or less? Does it take 5 minutes or less? Do people just go to the website, they find the thing they want, they know they have the problem, they purchase it, and they check out with maybe 1 click on Amazon? So now we're going to get into conversion rates, where at the top of the funnel, you've got these leads that become prospects with a 10% conversion rate, and then only 10% of the prospects become customers. So what that means is 1% of the total people at the top of the funnel actually come down to pay you money. So it's a numbers game, and it means you need to figure out activities in the advertising and marketing realm to generate more interest at the top of your funnel. So here's a content marketing sales funnel, where at the top you're getting website visitors. There's no risk or low risk offers you can see there. Oftentimes for the top of the funnel things, you just want to get an email address. Once you get a prospect's email address, you can then put them into a drip email marketing campaign. In this sentence, the word drip means that it is scheduled to send them a set number of emails spaced out, maybe 1 to 7 days in between the different emails, as like an onboarding, a welcome series. Tells them more about perhaps developing your company's authority, having some social proof to show other customers who are happy, talking about the quality of the work you do. And then you get them more engaged in other ways. They know you, they like you, they trust you, and then they're willing to pay you money and become a customer. Here's a quick social media example. You have 100,000 fans on Facebook, 10,000 of them see a post, 2% of them click to go to the website, 10% of them add it to the cart. Only 10% of the folks who added it, only 50% of the folks who added to the cart check out, and only 50% of them who get to the checkout pay, which means you have 5 sales out of the 100,000 Facebook fans. So it's important to understand what you're losing along the way. Sales leads can come from a variety of sources, and you want to measure and analyze the sources you're getting the sales leads, how many you're getting, what percentage are converting them, how well qualified are they, and the more qualified they are, the more likely they are to convert to an ultimate customer. Sales prospect is a qualified lead. It's somebody who has gone through the beginning phases of asking some questions and making sure that this is somebody who might be interested in purchasing your product or service. And we talked about sales capacity as well. You also want to learn your your customer's buying process and focus on that buying process. How long does it take them? What are the questions they have? If you can literally draw a map, like a treasure map, where the X marks the spot where they actually buy your product, you want to map it out and sell with the specific intent, and develop your sales strategy based on your customer's buying process, not based on your sales process. You don't just get to decide, hey, I want to sell this way, so this is the order I'm going to sell things, this is going to work. You need to understand what's the buyer's process and map to that method. So the golden rule of sales is to make it easy for the customer to say yes. You want to create a concept called yes momentum by asking short, easy, simple questions that they're going to say yes to. If you're meeting with somebody and they're wearing a Washington Nationals hat, you can even start with, oh, are you a Nats fan? Yeah. Oh, were you excited when they won the World Series a couple years ago? Yeah, that was awesome. And then maybe throw in a question about a qualifying question about the problem or pain point you saw. Hey, is that a problem yet? Yeah, that is a problem. You've gotten 3 yeses in a row. Their heads are probably nodding, and they're going to keep going with you in the direction. So as you think about your qualifying questions you want to ask, you want to make sure that they include or that they're designed to get yes answers and not no answers the majority of the time. So your selling style is going to be unique because you're a unique person. Everybody has their own style, and it's important that you find your style and do what makes you comfortable. You also want to know your audience because every sale is different. There are simple sales, there are complex sales, and every customer is different. Some are educated about the problem, some are educated about the market, some might even be educated about your solution. Some may have no idea about the problem or solution, and you'll need to be ready to educate them. So when you're in the room, be in the room. And you want to whelm, not overwhelm, whelm your audience. And that stands for watch, engage, listen, and make a connection. So you're watching their body language, you're engaging with the audience, you're actively listening to what the customer says, and you're making an authentic connection. So to close the deal, nobody wins if you don't close. And closing is a service, as you are helping someone to make a decision to exchange something of value for something of value. Closing skill represents only about 20% of your selling time, and it's 100% of the money. So to do the deal, you want to close the sale so then you can do the next deal together and continue building and nurturing the relationship. All right. And one of the other attachments in the Georgetown Startup Interns program is the Closer's Survival Guide. And I'm going to direct you there to learn a lot more about closing. There's a summary of the Closer's Survival Guide with some key points. Most importantly, starting on page 92, is a list of about 100 closes that you can read through and start to practice in different situations. Not all of them are going to work for all selling styles and personalities and even products or services, but it is an absolute goldmine and treasure chest to help you develop your skills for closing the deal. So key takeaways, I want you to find your style, perfect it, practice it, realize that you are a salesperson. You will be for your entire life as you try to persuade other people to do business with you. You want to be prepared for every meeting. I encourage you to write down an agenda before the meeting, perhaps to have 3 key objectives or things you want to talk about and accomplish in every sales meeting. You want to actively listen to what the audience and your prospects are saying. You want to watch for their body language, and you want to ask for their business. You have to ask for the sale. Nobody's ever closed a sale without asking for it, and make it easy for your customers to say yes. So thanks for your time and attention today for this edition of Georgetown Startup Interns.